We are going to be introducing our first powerful speaker all the way from Utah. He is the owner, Jason Latas, the owner of Quantum Body Human Performance Coaching and Buddha Gear. He's been a quantum wellness coach for over 30 years. He's here to share tips on how parents can overcome their limiting beliefs and the powerful impact that their expectations directly affect their children's confidence. I love how we share the same passion on neuroplasticity, which I'm sure you can share in just in a little mini clip, and will give parents hope that with persistence and practice, anything is possible. So, Jason, why do we do what we do? Why do we say what we say? And how can parents save their sanity?
Oh my gosh, that's a huge question to answer in 10 minutes, but here we go. Are you ready? Buckle up. First, thank you, Karen. Thank you for having me. Deslynn, you're amazing. Thank you for getting all this together. I love all you guys, and I really appreciate you. First, huge shout out to all the parents, both planned and unplanned parents. It's the hardest job you'll ever love. And I see you guys nodding and agreeing because it's amazing, guys. It's with my clients, they tend to make things challenging, and they come to me with questions. How do I make this easier?
Yeah.
What's that?
Oops, right.
I just want to make sure you can hear me. But we over prepare for so many things. We overstudy for things. We go to school, we get a degree for a career, all this over preparation for everything. But at what point did us as parents, did we say, hey, I've got a great idea. Let's make a human from scratch, and then let's raise it. You know what I mean? We never thought about this. We just jumped in, and like I said, we'll get a degree for a career. But yet, as a parent, we tend to just jump in, or for some of them, it's a surprise, which is awesome. But we don't prepare for it. We think, oh my gosh, I was a kid. I did fine. As long as I keep a roof over their head and keep them well fed and send them to school, everything will turn out all right. Well, it's interesting, and it always does. But we tend not to prepare for that as much. And Karen, you were mentioning, why we do what we do. And I've got a video called Why We Do What We Do that I actually have most of my clients listen to before I work with them. But it clears a lot of the pathway, so I don't have to spend hours explaining these things to them. But honestly, I ask my clients all the time in our first meeting, who are you? And they give me these labels. I'm a doctor, I'm a lawyer, I do this for a living, this is my religion, my whatever I do. That's not you at all. That's not you. And that's really where I'm going with this is, how can you raise another human if you don't really know and are secure with who you are? And so sometimes it takes a little inner work before you do that outer work, because I find a lot of parents are doing just as much parenting of that inner child for themselves while they're trying to parent that other child in front of them. And so with a little bit of reflection, hopefully I can help you guys out. It's what I call really your domestication process, how we were all raised, the good boy, good girl syndrome. We'll do anything to please that adult that's raising us. And I use the word caregiver a lot because that's not always just the parents, because for me, both my parents worked. So I came home, it was my big brother who raised me, which was good and bad. But we got to remember that it's our children are growing up trying to please their caregivers. And just that alone will change the way you phrase things when you work with your children. But I want to digress a little bit further and kind of go back to a lot of those unconscious habits that you developed from your parents or your brother or your caregiver or your teacher. And these habits that we've developed, and we say, oh my gosh, every time I get triggered, why do we respond that way? Well, these are the programs that were actually written not in our conscious mind up here in our rational, conscious, reasoning mind. They were written down here in the subconscious. So in about 5 minutes, I'm going to take you on a really quick tour of neuroprogramming. And when we decide to have a baby and it starts forming in mom's belly, I'm rubbing my belly here. It's as your brain develops, it's in a sleeping delta, low delta brainwave. And anything that happens to mom happens to the baby, because when things happen, does mom feel safe? Does mom feel loved? Does mom feel excited? Whatever, that creates a chemical storm in mom's body, which goes into her bloodstream, which goes into the baby. So the baby is feeling everything around you. When dad walks into the room and mom gets excited, the baby feels that. When someone walks into the room and mom is afraid, the baby feels that. So these are all the things you got to understand as your baby starts forming and building its brain feelings and emotions while it's still in the womb. Once it's born, it's still in that delta brainwave. Babies sleep a lot. They're still in that sleepy delta brainwave. They're actually learning through absorbing energy and emotions. They're not learning from your words. They're feeling the energy, they're feeling what's going on around them. So this is something you got to be super aware of. We have those conversations next to our children and we think, well, they're too young to know what we're saying, but they feel you. They feel the vibrations. They know what's going on. They know if you're happy, if you're safe, if you're afraid, if you're nervous. Trust me, they know. But as we get a little older, and I forgot to set my timer, so give me a couple of minutes, Karen, when I only have 2 or 3 left. I'm trying to talk fast. Our brainwaves, we're going to talk about delta, theta, alpha, beta. We're in a beta brainwave right now. We're adulting, we're thinking, we're navigating the world around us. When you're a child, you go from that delta wave at about 2 years old-ish, it depends on you and your genetics. We start to bump up to a little higher brainwave, which is a theta brainwave. This is a super imaginative brainwave where you could grab that broom and ride it around the house and it was a horse. In your mind, it was a horse. And you grab that stick and it was a sword, and your imagination is just amazing. But at this phase, not only is our brain growing at an unfathomable rate, we're having to learn at an unfathomable rate. So we start laying those programs. The challenge is children are learning from everyone around them without discernment. Did you catch that? Without discernment. Their frontal lobe is not even formed or online yet. They're just learning. So if you walk up in a really serious manner and tell them something as though it's a fact, if they trust you, they'll believe you. Don't forget that. They'll believe you. And as soon as they believe you and they agree with you, that becomes a truth for them for the rest of their lives until it's challenged or until they change that truth. That's why we still have a lot of programming in our head that was formed as a baby. We listened to everyone, right, wrong, or we didn't know any different. We didn't discern it. We just listened and learned. We got to learn how to adult as fast as possible. Well, as we go through that imaginative super learning phase, we learn from those that we trust. We also learn that those authority figures that we look up to that we're around a lot. So it might not be the parents. It might be the teacher. It might be the caregiver. Who knows? It might be the bus driver. They might be learning everything they ever learned from that wonderful bus driver that greets them with a smile every morning. And they learn to love that bus driver. So one of the things I help my parents realize, any clients that are parents, is some of the most important time you can spend with your child is that first 10 to 20 minutes in the morning. How do they wake up? How do you greet them? Do they feel loved? Do they feel safe? Do they feel accepted? Are you telling them, oh my gosh, good morning, it's such a beautiful day, how amazing are you? I'm so excited you're going to school to learn all these great things. I can't wait to hear what you learned today. Or are you stressed out trying to cook eggs because you're going to be late because you slept in 10 minutes? Something to think about. That first 10 minutes means everything. It sets the standard of how their day is going to go. When they come home from school, if you're there, and if you're not, that's okay. My parents weren't. Do you greet them with excitement? And the next super important time is before bed. How do you send them off to bed? Is it, oh my gosh, I'm late I just got back from a meeting. I just cooked dinner. I got dishes to do. Go brush your teeth and go to bed. Or do you take that moment to be present with your child, Tell them how much you love them, how proud you are of them. Find out a little bit about what they learned today and tell them how excited you are for tomorrow. Because when they go to bed, they're going to drop back down into that theta wave and that delta deep sleep wave where they can reprogram that subconscious pattern, that those limiting of beliefs they may have picked up. This is where you can help them learn to understand they're seen, they're loved, they're safe, and they're going to bed to wake up for another beautiful day, because they're going to go to bed and they're going to manifest this next day. To help them prepare for that. So something you want to keep in mind. And then as our kids get older, they drop into that daydreaming stage as a teenager, where I used to stare out the window in science class and daydream. That's an alpha state. And that's where in meditation, I can help people get down to that state and rewrite these programs. It's fun. It's really fun. I'd love to talk more about that, but we don't have time. But from there, from that alpha wave, that's when we, oh my gosh, now we got to get a job, we got to get a car, we need insurance, and we have to start adulting.
Jason, you accidentally hit mute.
Oh no, I did.
Karen
Sorry.
muted you
Oh,
back.
okay, cool.
Sorry. Can you just repeat that last part?
I was just saying, so after we get out of that alpha state, we start, adulting. We have to get a car, get a job, all of these priorities. That's when our brain waves really speed up to navigating the world around us. And we've already laid that program of really how we're going to live. We've built our truths. Yes, we're still going to learn, but that deep subconscious program, and we keep, you hear all the time, why do I keep doing these things, all these habits? How do I get rid of them? Well, you're not going to retrain them in this beta brainwave. You need to slow down a little bit. That's another program that we can talk about later, but you got to understand all of those subconscious patterns, and most of them are written as a child. This child you're raising, you're writing programs that they're going to run for the rest of their life. Are they busy? Are they stressed out? Do they not have time for you? Later, when they're teens, are they busy? Are they stressed out? Do they not have time for you? Where did they learn that? So these are questions you need to ask yourself. Rules in my house really are pretty simple. You're loved, you're safe, and you're enough. The rest we can work on later. But that's really the grounding. You're loved, you're safe, you're enough. Let your child know that they're amazing. These are where they're writing that program. If mom was always stressed out and never had time, chances are they're going to become the mom that's always stressed out and never has time, because your children don't listen to those prepared speeches that you read to them that you think you're supposed to say as a parent. They model you. So all those subconscious patterns that you're running all day long and you don't even notice it, all these little things that you're doing, guess what? Your kids do. And they're learning from you. So just something to pay attention to. Something for just a little bit of relief for the parents, the frustrated parents that want to have that nice, reasonable conversation with their children. This big old frontal lobe on the front of our brain here, it doesn't even come online until you're late in your teens, and oftentimes isn't fully active until you're 20 or older. So if you get frustrated that you can't reason with your child, there's a reason for the lack of reasoning, and that's because the frontal lobe's not online yet. So try not to get overly frustrated. They're learning to be a person. They're learning to stand on their own feet. They're learning to stand in their power. So make sure you make them feel powerful, wanted, loved, and cared for. Cool. And there you go. Is that my 10 minutes?
Yes. Oh my gosh, that was amazing. I think
Oh, we get to asking questions and answers.
Yes.
Oh no, not questions.
Anyone have questions or feedback? I know that I listen to Des wake up her son in the morning, and she is very kind, very mellow. And I didn't realize, I guess when I woke up my girls, I've been reminded now. I have a 20 and 26. I was like, okay, come on, we're gonna be leaving in an hour. Da, 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 da. And I thought I
Uh,
didn't even know, Jason, what I was doing. So I'm doing a lot of apologizing. But
none
any
of us did. Oh my gosh, none
because
of
you're
us
just
did.
on this roller coaster of the to-do list, and then you forget to remind your kids that they're
I
loved,
know.
they're safe.
I look back at all the things that I thought I was being a great parent. And then I'm like, did I really do that? Oh my gosh. Fortunately, through neuroplasticity, our brains are malleable. We can work on this. So even though they are teenagers, and their frontal lobe isn't fully online, we can slowly start to reprogram these things and re-enter the you're loved, you're safe, you're enough. And the biggest one is you're enough. You don't have to be just like everybody else on social media. Please don't. Please don't. I don't want uh, Joy and I together in a blended family. We have 8 kids. Oh my gosh, I know, and I'm still alive. I got a little twitch right here that I can, but it's like I said, those rules. You're loved, you're enough, but we don't want 8 roses. We want 8 individual, beautiful flowers. We don't want to raise all our children to be exactly like us or exactly like someone else. We want them to be those unique, beautiful little spirits they were born to be and actually blossom into that flower, not the flower I think you're supposed to be. Blossom into your own unique flower. You're amazing. And you need to know that.
I had a question. So like the past, like sometimes we can get guilted out as parents, right? Like, oh my gosh, like, and then sometimes we can focus on what our parents didn't do, right? And I
Yeah.
think it's important for us to heal our wounds and whatnot. But can you give us a simple practical tip for today? You know what I mean? If like even like Karen was talking about reparenting our inner child,
Yeah.
is there like a tip that we can start doing for ourselves? Because if we cannot like really feel enough as a person and as an individual, it's hard for us to make our children, our spouses, or anybody feel enough if we don't feel enough.
There you go. That's a great question. Well, if I were to really narrow it down really quick, do more of what you love. Most people don't take time for ourselves. We're too busy reading all the, I won't use any names, books, motivational speakers, these sorts of things. And then, at the end of the day, we're like, oh my gosh, I just went to this seminar all weekend. I've got it figured out. And then someone triggers you and you explode. Well, it's because you're so busy trying to be like other people and take care of other people. You're not taking a moment for yourself. And honestly, it's those small moments for yourself in the morning. And gosh, I could talk for 10 minutes just on this. I wish I had more time. But when you wake up, you actually wake up in an alpha state. That's that daydreaming state. That's a really powerful programming stage. When you wake up in the morning, I've got a really quiet alarm and I can just turn it off. And it's so I'm just barely awake, but not fully awake. That's called alpha. That's an alpha state. That's where you start to program your day. If the first thing you think of is, oh my God, I'm going to be late for work, I'm stressed out, I've got all these things to do, that sets your motion for the day. But if you learn to sit there in that alpha state, relax, breathe deep, tell yourself how amazing you are, and think of the things you love, and think of 3 things you really, more if you want, of course, but that you're in deep gratitude for and how amazing that day is going to be. Those couple minutes for yourself will literally change your entire life. And it'll also help you realize that when your child wakes up, they're looking around for guidance. They're wondering, what should I be focused on today? Am I stressed out because mom is stressed out because she's cooking breakfast and is going to be late? You know what I mean? And so these are things you need to remember, not only for the child in front of you, but like I said earlier, that inner child. You need to take care of that inner child. So take some time for yourself and do what you want.
Jason, Tressa has a question to ask.
Yeah,
Hi, Jason. Can you hear me?
I can hear you.
Awesome. This is fantastic. I'm so excited to be with you all today. So I have an interesting question about the phrase when we talk to our kids and say, I'm proud of you. I
Mhm.
always hear like an attachment. Like I never want my kids to have like X has to happen in order for my parents to be proud of me, like
Yes.
home run, straight A's, this and that. So I tend to not say I'm proud of you to my kids, um, because I just think it like something has to happen in order. So I tend to say, hey buddy, I see you working hard, or
Mhm.
good work, or when you did that, that was like really so nice of you, like different types of acknowledgments. And I've talked to
Uh-huh.
other parents about this, and they're like, that's crazy. You don't say like I'm proud of you to your kids. So what's your coaching on that? Like clearly I'm proud. Like I don't
Well,
want them to have to
chances
get
are,
straight A's to get, you know what I
yeah,
mean?
well, chances are, if I had enough time with you, we could probably draw this down to something that your parents or one of your caregivers told you, and as a child, you programmed that in. For me, it was be humble, be super humble. Don't tell anybody any good things about yourself, and those were just little things that get implanted in you that you keep until you actually learn to reprogram them. But on the proud front, it doesn't have to be anything. And that's what I think we need to realize is you can be proud of your child just because of the way they embrace life. Oh my gosh,
Mhm.
you're so amazing. I'm so proud of you. You did so good in school today. And you know what? When you got that F, you didn't freak out. Like, that's
Yeah.
so awesome. Not like, why did you get that? It's like, oh my gosh, most people would have been so stressed out. I love how you handled that. You're an amazing human. Wow,
I
I'm learning from you. You're amazing. Thank you for teaching me how to really respond in a stressful situation.
and I think just a little bit more of that. I think I want my kids to be proud of themselves, not
Yes.
do things to make me proud of them. So I guess I use like the verbiage like I see you working hard, or you should be
Mhm.
proud of yourself. Like, you really put effort into studying for that math test. I know you hate math, blah, blah, blah. So is that good enough? Or is the I'm
Well,
proud of you
I think what
that
I try
important?
what I try and get across is you don't always have to wait for an astounding accomplishment to tell your
Yes.
child you're proud of them. You can
Yes.
you can just wake them up in the morning and say, "Oh my gosh, you're so dang cute. I'm so proud of you. We're gonna have such an amazing day today." Sneak it in there. If
Yeah.
it's tough for you, just say, "Oh my gosh, I'm so proud of you the way you handled that." It doesn't have to be anything. Your child needs to be loved and praised.
Yeah.
Studies have shown, psychological studies, a child cannot be loved too much.
Yeah. Okay, excellent. Yeah, I definitely do lots of that. I just didn't know if the I'm proud of you was like, is that important?
It's super important because having your parent proud of you builds your foundation for the rest of your life.
Hmm. It's interesting. I don't want to take too much of the time, but it's funny. Like my mom will say to me, "Oh, you did this, you did that, you did this, you did that." It's not. It doesn't matter to me if my parents are proud of me or not. Is that
So
weird?
that no, not at all. That just
I'm
goes
proud. I feel proud of myself for
you
all of
should.
these things. Yeah, and it's like, oh, I thank you. I appreciate the gift of the compliment, but it makes really no difference to me.
Interesting.
No,
Yeah,
Interesting.
I think it's good. It's a healthy way of confirming and validating yourself. And I think as any human, we should. But some of us
yeah,
are always reinforced by negative or positive validation. And so I think that's
exactly.
healthy. And I think that's incredible.
Excellent. All right. Thanks, guys. Thank you.
Thanks,
So
Scott.
thank you so much, Jason.
Thank
We
you.
are always inspired by you. And we're going to have some time after Ricky. We're going to have a break after Ricky's question Q&A. So if you guys have any other questions for Jason, you'll have a second chance at it. So our